What's up? PokerBrandon here. Let me be fake excited so that my enthusiasm makes you like videos more. Okay, so this is gonna be the first hand of 13 significant hands during the session. They're all gonna be in real time other than the time when I fast forward me stacking chips. First hand I play, it's about 2 hands in. I get 9-10 suited, I bet $15. Blinds are 2-3. And everybody folds around. I'm not sure if this table's tight. There's a lot of new faces here other than one player I know. I show the table what I have because I want them to see my range. I want them to know my range is wide. I plan on playing wide today, and I plan on using that as arsenal to make money later. Okay, so second significant hand, I look down at an ace of diamonds. I'm on the 0. First to act pre-flop, -5 makes it $15 to start it off. If you're confused at what that means, these are literally my little new invention acronyms that I'm using. FTAP stands for first to act pre-flop. -5 means he's the player with 5 players behind him to act post-flop. -1 is the cutoff. -1 is symbolistic to meaning there's one player to act behind him, which is me on the 0 button. The button. Now, I'm not going to really talk too much about that. You guys can use your brains to figure that out. I look down at a juicy ace offsuit, and I want to ISO somebody here. I like my position. I want to play somebody. I make it $55, thinking that's going to be enough to get one caller here. First to act pre-flop folds after the blinds get out of the way. There's $20 in the pot. I bet 55, and nobody comes along, so I end up taking this pot down. Okay, so I started off with $300, and slowly my chip count is building up. And I don't really have to see many flops, so I'm opening a lot. I'm 3-betting with some nice aces, and I'm remaining consistent as far as that goes. Now here we go, -4, limps in. I post $3 because I missed my blinds. I stood up to, I had a restroom break. Anyway, -2 limps in. Now when I see Queen-9 suited, it's not necessarily the nice hand you want to be raising with, but I'm in position and the table's pretty tight, so I make it $15. I feel like I got a nice, simple read on everybody around. -4 and -2 make the call. We go 3 ways to a flop. Flop is Jack 7-3. So I basically have a backdoor to a straight and 1 over, and that's about it. So my equity for showdown at this point is not very good, but after 2 tight players check it to me, and I haven't shown my hand really much at all for showdown. I don't think I actually showed it at all yet so far, up until this point. I go ahead and continue for $20. How do you not put me on a jack when I bet $20 into a $50 pot?
Did you pull one for that one?
It just very often feels like I could have any jack there. So I take that one down. So as I'm playing this session, I'm taking mental notes on what types of bet sizing I'm using, how often I'm playing, and what hands I've shown the table, because all of that always comes into effect when you're getting involved in hands with specific players. You definitely need to keep in mind your table image as you're playing poker, because the table and the players around you see you, they take mental notes about you, and they will play based off of your action. So right here you can see first act pre-flop limps in, -2 limps in, -1 limps in, button doesn't come in. I see pocket 6s, and I want to keep my aggressiveness going. I bump it up to $20. Big blind finally comes into a pot. He calls. First to act limp calls, and both of these players, -2 and -1, are going to limp call. We're gonna go 4 ways to a flop. The only player here I'm sort of feeling like could have a sneaky premium hand here is Big Blind, because this was probably the second hand I've seen him play since he sat down for about, I would say, 30 to 40 minutes. Flop is 2 Queen 4. Now, with pocket sixes, it's not very good at all, especially with 3 people behind me, but I want to keep this aggression going so far until I lose the pot. And if I spike a random 6 on the turn, that's definitely going to make me money. Now, I go ahead and continue this, but I don't really bet to bluff people out of the pot just yet. I sort of put out a $25 bet, something I would do with the queen if I did have a queen. And it's more to narrow down the field here. So as I put in my $25 bet, Big Blind thinks about it, and he's probably the last guy I want to see call here because he does not play too often. So when he puts his money in right here, I really feel like he could have a queen, maybe a weak queen, nut flush draw. And when I say nut flush draw, I mean the ace high flush draw. So we end up going heads up to a turn. I only want to see a 6 on the turn, but when I see that ace hit, I can't help but wonder, how am I going to take this pot right now? If I check this and he has a queen, he's going to check it back. If he has an ace, he might even go for value. If he has a flush draw, he's going to get a free card. So I'm going to bluff at this because I want the pot. The way I've played, I raised it pre-flop, so pretty much every ace is in my range. I could have ace king, ace queen, ace jack of clubs, ace rag of clubs, so it's still not a bad card to continue with. I go ahead and continue for 75 bucks, and I do have a backup plan if I do get called, and that's to hit a 6. I probably would have given up though if I did get called here. Big Blind made the fold, and he would later tell me he folded ace 10. I don't know if it was offsuit or suited, but he folded ace 10, and I got him to fold an ace, so I'm happy about that. Interesting side note, so Big Blind that I just got involved in the hand with, he told me a cool story, told a couple people at the table, a cool story about how he played low-limit cash game poker. He built up a bankroll to $6,000. He turned it into $26,000 at a no-cap table in Vegas, and he ended up getting it all in with a set of queens on a flop with a flush draw. Somebody called them with a flush draw, and they hit, and he ended up losing all 26 grand. So that was unfortunate, but a very cool story, and cool playing with you, Big Blind. All right, let's get into this hand. It limped over to me. I was in the +1 seat, also known as the neg 4. I limped in with some plans to limp raise here. I ended up getting an open from the neg 2 seat. Button made the call, Big Blind made the call, and now there's $45 in the middle, and my plan is going to be implemented. I start counting out what I think is enough to get one caller here. If Big Blind shoved, I'm going to call. If the button shoved, I probably would call as well. I just don't want to see a shove from the hijack. Now, hijack really quickly makes the call. So he opened it up to 15, and then he quickly made the call. So I had some red flags at this point. Felt like he could be really strong here. Now, when he made the call, it made it make way more sense for Button and Big Blind to come in. So the 0 thinks about it. He only has about 200 behind, so when he makes the call here, I thought that was pretty interesting. I think it would have made more sense for him to just shove it at that point. But he just made the call. Now, Big Blind here, I gotta say, I was expecting him to shove. Now, if he shoved here, I think, honestly, I would fold because I would expect hijack to shove behind. And I was very surprised to see that big blind, after a lot of contemplating, doesn't shove. He just makes the call. So absolutely the opposite of what I wanted. I wanted to isolate with ace-queen offsuit here. I'm not sure why all these players just made the call for 75 bucks, but it happened. So we went 4 ways to a flop. Flop is 399. Checks very quickly to me. I don't have a heart, and with 3 guys behind me and a lot of money invested, I'm not gonna take a stab at this. It would just honestly be throwing money away. I check it, neg 2 checks it, and the button checks too. Next card is an 8 of hearts. It doesn't help me at all. And finally, big blind puts in his stack. It's a very easy fold here. Sucks to lose the $75 I put in for the 3-bet. Neg 2 makes the call, and he shows that he hit the nut flush. So he's going to take that one down. And just so you guys know, you're seeing correctly, he called that 3-bet with ace-7 suited. Okay, so I have about 340 bucks, and I see queen 10 offsuit. First stack pre-flop limped in. Neg 3 opened it up to $10. Hijack made the call. I'm in position here. I'm on the neg 1 seat, and that's good enough for me to just make the call here with queen 10 off. No need to isolate. I don't mind seeing a flop multi-way. So here we go. We go 5 ways to this 8-2-9 flop. Now, I have a gut shot to the nuts. I have 2 overs. That's a very, very good hand to bluff with. Original opener who made it $10 pre-flop bets 15. That doesn't necessarily mean he has a very strong hand. I make the call to see how narrow the field will narrow down. First stack pre-flop also made the call. We went 3 ways to a 9 of clubs on the turn. No help, but first stack pre-flop checks. The original opener pre-flop thinks about it. And after a lot of thinking, he's about to check right now. So when he checks, at this point, I could check this, but if I check this, I'm really only checking to hit a queen or a jack. So that is very, very narrow. It's very low odds to happen. So because it's very low that I'm going to win this at showdown at this point, I'm going to go ahead and bluff this. Now this bluff I put in is specifically made to make the table, as far as these 2 players, think that I have a 9. I would have definitely called that flop with a 9-10, 9-jack, 7-9, 6-9, queen 9, any 9 really. So when I put in this bet, it's a very easy call. When you look at $45 into a $100 pot, every single overpair should call here. Obviously, every 9 is going to call. Flush draws get a very easy pot odd call. Even an 8 could call here. So it just looks a lot like I do have a 9, and I'm just milking this. Now, I really don't, but LoJack doesn't know that. So he ends up making the call here, and when he makes the call, he looked very, very weak when he made the call. I don't think he was acting weak. I think he genuinely was weak. And I felt like he was very disappointed when he made that call. And I felt like at this point, he had an overpair like jacks. And he was disappointed to see that I possibly could have a 9 at this point. Now, when he checks this, it's possible he could have a flush. It's possible he could be slow playing a boat, like a full house with pocket 8s, full house with pocket 2s. But that's just very, very, very low probability. And I expect him to get value with those hands at this point. So when he checks it, all of his range pretty much narrows to an 8 or a pocket pair like 10s or jacks. And the only way I'm going to win this now is if I bet. I thought about shoving here, but a shove against this player specifically, I felt would just look too much like a bluff, and he could catch that. He actually has caught a bluff I made in the past, and I don't want this to look like a bluff as far as an obvious overbet bluff at all. I want this to look like I'm really trying to get value with a 9. In this situation, when I bet out 100 here, I'm willing to lose this 100 to win this 188 based off of my read on this guy and the way I played this hand. So after some tanking, neg3 gets very disappointed and folds. He would later tell me that he folded an overpair.
What was that? Queen high. Wow.
So I go ahead and flip over my hand because I still want this table to think that I am a loose, aggressive player. You can see the neg 5 seat couldn't really catch what I had there, and he was sort of amazed to see that I made that bluff with queen high.
Yeah.
Okay, so hand number 7, the 7th significant hand I had at the session. I see a juicy ace offsuit. I bump it up to $10 in the neg 3 seat, and I'm sort of stacking my chips here, just making sure my counts are all correct. And the button raises to $20. So I haven't seen that happen for about an hour. And then small blind over there 4 bets to 40. So this is sort of a very easy fold with jack ace offsuit after a 3 bet and a 4 bet. I only have $10 invested. My position is not the best because the button raised it behind me, so it was a very easy fold here. I'm expecting to see a pocket pair, big one somewhere, but it folds to the small blind 4 better, and he laughs and shows that he made that play with ace 3 suited. So I got to give props to that. That was a very high IQ play, or just a guy who likes to gamble. Okay, hand number 8. I'm still sitting with about my original buy-in. I have $300. I bought in for $300, and even though I'm being aggressive and winning some pots, I'm losing some pots as well. I bumped this up with 10-8 suited in the neg 1 seat. First to act pre-flop opened it up to $6, so I bumped it up to 20 to ISO him. And behind me, small blind raises all in. So I'm not really too happy to see this because he didn't raise with enough here for me to fold. If it would have been like 80, I probably could have folded, but because it's not even 3x my bet, I have to call here because I'm not just going to throw away money. So I go ahead and make the call, and you can go ahead and watch the action. So obviously you can see that small blind over there watches the Hustler Casino live stream. You could see he went all in with Jack 4 offsuit there, and he's gonna win this.
One jack on.
So many times you're gonna be playing poker and you're gonna see these loose players play very weird hands that make 0 sense, but it happens. I added on $100 here because my stack dwindled down to about 200. So I added on to the max about $300, and we're off to hand number 9 of this significant hand session vlog. Now, as you can see, neg 3 opened it up to $10. Neg 2 and neg 1 made the call. There's 3 players in there. There's $30 in the pot already, and I see ace queen offsuit. I'm here to play, and I finally have an actual hand I can 3-bet with. My image is already very loose aggressive, so I feel like this is going to work out for me quite well. I'm hoping to get one caller here. first to act player gets out of the way. Neg 2, also known as the hijack, thinks about it. And when I sit down when I'm playing and I guess my poker stance, I'm usually pretty quiet. I like to play with chips in one hand, hold my cards in the other, and I try to keep the same face. Don't really talk too much, and I try to remain very stone-faced. I get one caller from the neg 1, and I'm first to act when we go 1v1 to this flop. Flop is 7 ace 6. So at this point, if I bet this, neg 1 seat seemed to be a pretty tight player. He's not playing too often. I feel like if I bet this, he's definitely going to feel like I have an ace, and it's going to be an easy fold for him if he has a hand like pocket 8s, pocket 9s, any pocket pair. That's not a set. So I check it to him to trap.
Oh yeah, no question.
He checks back. Now when he checks back, I expect him to check every single pair that's lower than an ace. I put him on at this point about jacks, 10s, 9s, 8s. Now here's my turn. I have 2 pair now on my turn when the turn comes. So now I size up a bet that I want to specifically make look like I'm trying to buy the pot. I specifically want to bet $100 because I want this player to remember that I made this exact same move when I had queen high. He was the player who asked me what I had, and I told him I had queen high. I didn't throw in my $100 chip to make this bet because I specifically wanted to make it look as closely as possible to the way I bluffed off earlier in the session. I baited him to go all in. He did, and go ahead and watch the action after I call. You have a set? I don't beat a set. Yeah. So he never showed what he had. He mucked his hand, and I go ahead and take this pot down. Now this is a very good example of how when you're playing poker, every session is different. I probably would have played this a lot differently if I had not played the way I played earlier in this session, and I knew that this specific player saw that. You should definitely take mental notes on every player at the table, the questions they're asking you, the hands that you've shown them. Always take those mental notes in your brain and use that information when you play and you get involved with them 1v1. Here specifically, I got paid off, and I think it was definitely because he saw me bluff off with queen high earlier in the session. So at this point in the session, just to give you an update, this was about 2 hours in. I played many hands. I was playing very loose, opening lots of pots, and my stack was 300. I added on 100, and it built up to about $690. So my 10th significant hand during this session, I have about $660. I'm on the big blind, and I'm liking my image right now. I sort of always like to set the image that I have to my table as a loose, aggressive player that is capable of making bluffs, because that's when I normally get paid off a lot. Neg 1 here limps in, button limps in, small blind limps in, action's on me, and I just check this with king 8 offsuit. Now this pre-flop action here is super standard as far as all the hands you don't see during my session vlogs. Normally 90% of poker is this pre-flop action here. I get a little bit interesting with my hand here. I figured let me make the videos better by just keeping my hand exposed. The player to my right and left are not involved, so I don't really have to hide my hand. And I go ahead and tilt it up for here for the video for you to see. Flop is 9-4 king with 2 clubs. I have a king. The pot is only $12. I bet $5 after small blind checks it to me. Neg 1 makes the call. Small blind gets out. We go 1v1 to a turn.
I'll hold it.
I'm sure player to my left and right were both looking at my hand too as this happened.
Oh, I know.
Turn is a 7 of clubs, so flush draw gets there. I bet $10. Don't really expect him to have a flush draw every time on the flop and hit it on the turn like that every time. He could still be calling me with a 9, a straight draw. So I still go for value with my king. Now neg 1 takes some time to think, and he counts out some raising chips. He raises it up to $40. I know this player's capable of bluffing. He's the same player that 4-bet with ace-3 suited pre-flop earlier in this session. So, when he makes it 40, my gut instinct tells me to fold. I just feel like he could have a flush, he could have 2 pair, he could have a better king. But because it's only 30 more to call, I already have $10 invested. There's $22 more in the pot. It just makes sense to go ahead and make the call. So I continue. I go ahead and call for a discount. I try to call for $35, but the dealer does a very great job at keeping me honest. She makes me put in the correct $40 call, and I do, and we go off to a river. River gives me 2 pair, but I have 2 pair. I'm first to act, but a straight definitely connects. On top of a flush already connecting, on top of him already having a better king. So at this point, it just doesn't really make sense for me to go for value here. I don't want to turn this hand into a bluff when I know that that player could definitely have a flush already. He makes this last river bet a very, very easy call. I honestly feel like I'm bad here. I feel like he's making this bet with 2 pair. As far as having king 9, so I definitely feel cooled at this point. I feel like it's a flush or king 9. I make the call, but he shows 4-7 offsuit, so it made very much sense for him to raise that turn. He hit 2 pair, and I guess I got lucky on the river, and I won. Okay, so this was very nice to see that I won another 100 to add to my stack here. My stack is now at about $750, and at this point in the session, I felt like I wanted to stand up. I was ready to go. I did not want to play too long tonight, but since I'm on a winning streak, let me just keep sitting and keep playing. I tighten up my play. I'm not playing too much anymore. I'm not raising too much anymore unless I'm holding like ace queen, ace jack, ace king, pocket pairs. I'm playing more like a nit now at this point in the session. But there's a lot of players here who still have seen me bluff. They know I'm capable. So I can keep using that image to get paid when I do have these nice hand holdings. Neg 1 limped in, button limped in. I saw ace queen offsuit. I bumped it up to 30. Last to act pre-flop, straddler makes the call, and neg 1 makes the call. So we went 3 ways to a flop.
And then I thought about it later, and I was like, you know what? Part of it was to...
Flop is ace 4-5.
And he was sort of
Now,
letting me down. He was like, you know,
this flop is pretty draw heavy. There's lots of straight draws there. There's
I mean, he had ace, I think he had ace 10.
a flush draw out there. I don't want to make this too easy to call. I sort of want to take the pot down. I bet half the pot. I bet $50 to deny equity and to take the pot down. I get 1 caller from the neg 1. So we go to a turn. Turn is a 3. Now let me explain why I'm not afraid of him having a deuce. Now, the only deuces I feel like he would call $30 pre-flop with could be pocket 2s or ace 2. I'm holding an ace, so the chances of him having ace 2 are very low. I don't expect him to have a deuce here at all. I don't expect him to have 6-7. So pretty much at this point, I put him on a flush draw, maybe a combo draw. as far as having a straight draw for like maybe like 6, 8 diamonds maybe, if he wanted to be that tricky. But I just wanted him to have to pay a very big price to see that river at that point, and he let it go, and I took down that pot. So first to act pre-flop, significant hand number 12. He limped in, neg 4 limped in, neg 3 limped in. I'm on the neg 1 seat. I go ahead and limp in because everybody at the table now seems to be limping. Nobody's really being aggressive. I don't mind it. I'm holding a suited queen. It's only $3 to get a very good payout if I do hit, and bam, I hit a flush right on the flop. Small blind checks, big blind checks. First to act pre-flop, thinks about it, and he's gonna make it $7. Neg 4 gets out of the way. Neg 3 makes the call. Now, I could just call this. A lot of players like to trap and slow down and not scare people away, but you got to think, my headspace at this point in time was, I flopped a flush. Now, why would anyone at the table think that I would raise and be that obvious with a flopped flush? So that's exactly why I raised that up. And I wanted to charge anybody at the table who was going for a king of club draw or an ace of club draw. That's why I made it 25 and I raised it. So after that, I kind of sized up this opponent to have an ace high flush draw, maybe a king high flush draw. I wanted him to make the call. I did not expect him to go all in, but he went all in, and go ahead and watch the action.
What?
Do you have bigger than a queen flush? I have a flush.
Fluffed it?
Yeah.
Nice one.
So the player to my right, neg 3 low jack, he had a pair of 9s. I guess he just did not expect me to raise that pre-flop with a made hand. He thought I was the one on the draw. Unfortunately for him, I already had the made hand, and I had to take his chips away from him. As I film these videos, I try to keep everybody's face private. That's why that big white block up top was created. I try not to show your faces because I'm not out there asking you if you want to be on camera, and I just don't think it's right to put your face out there if you don't want to be out there. So I'm stacking chips now, last hand of this session as far as it being a significant hand. I see 7-8 suited. I opened it up to $10 from the neg 4 seat. Neg 3 made the call. Neg 2 raised it to $30. So there's a 3-bet, and then big blind made the call. It's only $20 more. I'm getting good pot odds to make the call with these suited connectors. I expect neg 2C to have like a premium holding, maybe ace king, ace queen, big pocket pair. Big blind, I expect him to have maybe a pocket pair as well. So if the right flop comes, I know I can get paid pretty well with 7-8 suited. Neg 3 seat to my left, he was a tight player. He also comes in because the pot odds were very good for him as well. So we go 4 ways to a flop. Flop is 8-7-6. Even though this is a rainbow board and I have 2 pair, normally I would bet this about 25 to 30% of the pot to get a call from maybe 1 or 2 players, but at this point in the session, I sort of wanted to go home, and I felt like this pot was mine at this point. I know that a 9 is going to make a call here, 10 is going to make a call, a 5 is going to make a call, even if it's about a pot-sized bet. So the pot is $120. I sized this up to be just over half the pot. If somebody does have a 9 or a 5 or a 10 or a 4, I want them to go ahead and make a call one time. I am ready to call a shove from either one of these players at this point as well. I don't want to, but I'm ready to do it. It folds over to the big blind, who makes the call. And side note, big blind player, she was new. She actually plays at the 100 200 blind game. So she's playing 100, 200 games. And you heard correctly, blinds. And she's also playing a $2, $3 game. She told me specifically she just loves poker. She just loves playing. So that was interesting. That was pretty cool. As far as the action right here, it was check to me. This queen of spades hit on the turn. I bet all in for her, 195 effective, because I just want her out of the pot now. I don't want her to hit her hand. I want to win this and go home. I'll show you. Either way.
816 RS with 816 RS.
So you can see I sort of baited her to fold because I didn't want her to catch her draw. You missed?
I made it.
Oh, you made it. That's why I did that.
Yeah.
So you don't make it. So Big Blind really wanted to know if she was going to hit her straight, and she would later say she folded pocket nines. And she saw the river, and the river was a 10, so she would have made her straight, as far as she says. But I mean, I don't know if that's true. I believe her, though. This is going to conclude session 5 of this Friday night. I played for about 4 to 5 hours of session. I was in for a total of $400, and I was out for $1,100. So, yep, that concludes it. Thank you for watching. This is PokerBrandon. I'm out.